The Harry Potter films are fantastic, and honestly, they're one of the best book to movie adaptations we've ever gotten. However, when you're adapting books as long as Harry Potter, it's incredibly tough to add everything, so a lot was left out of the movies. In this video, I'm going to go through 30 things that you would not know if you've only seen the movies. If you enjoy this video, hit that like button. It will greatly help the channel with the algorithm. And if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and you can also follow me on all of my other social medias, all of which are linked down below, and all of which house similar content that I make here on this channel. Now that I've said that, let's get the video started. 1. Umbridge was the one who sent the Dementors to Little Whinging. Yep, that's right, movie watchers. Add another thing that will make you hate Umbridge even more. She was the one who sent the Dementors to attack Harry, knowing it would force him to use magic, thus giving the Ministry a reason to go after him and slander him even more. Absolutely infuriating. If the movies added that, Umbridge would get even more hate than she already does. 2. Peter Pettigrew takes his own life. We saw Pettigrew in the 3rd, 4th, 6th, and 7th film, meaning he got a decent amount of screen time. That's why it's pretty shocking that the films did not finish his arc the way the book did, instead just having him be stunned by Dobby in a comedic way. This scene was anything but comedic in the book though. Peter uses the silver hand that Voldemort gave him to choke himself to death. This was brought on when Harry tells Peter that he owes him for saving his life in The Prisoner of Azkaban. Harry and Ron try to pull his silver hand away from his throat, but alas, they're unable to, and Wormtail dies down in the cellar. Definitely a big and very monumental change from book to movie. 3. Harry's father James, along with Remus Lupin, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew, created the Marauders map. The film introduces us to the map and even goes over the nicknames the four boys gave each other in their Hogwarts days.
Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs are proud to present the Marauders map.
However, I was pretty shocked to realize that the film never tells you that Mooney is Lupin, Padfoot is Sirius, and Prongs is James, nor that those four made the Marauders map. The film also fails to tell you that Harry's father, like Sirius and Peter, was an animagus who could turn into a stag, which also happens to be Harry's Patronus, a stag. 4. Mad-Eye Moody was the mentor of Nymphadora Tonks. The movie has both of these characters present in the films, but the movies fail to tell you that Moody was training Tonks to be an Auror, which is a huge honor considering that Moody was arguably the best Auror of all time back in the day and was retired. To have him come out of retirement to train Tonks was a huge deal. During the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, both Tonks and Moody were seriously injured, and a bloody Mad-Eye crawled over to where Tonks was and tried to revive her, not caring about his own injuries. These two had a very strong bond that you would never know if you had only watched the films. 5. Firenze the Centaur became a Hogwarts professor. We met Firenze in the first movie, but we never see him again after that. In the books though, we do see him later on, as Dumbledore actually brings him in to teach divination after Professor Trelawney was fired by Umbridge. Dumbledore brought Firenze in as fast as he could to ensure that the Ministry didn't fill the position with their own hire just like they did with Umbridge. 6. Cho Chang is older than Harry, Ron, and Hermione. This one is funny to me because when I made my video on Cho Chang way back when, so many people did not know this fact and was commenting that I got the years wrong. I literally had to add a pinned comment to let everyone know. And I get it, because the movies actually had Cho be at Hogwarts when Harry arrived back to the castle during the events of the Deathly Hallows, and she was wearing the Hogwarts uniform. This obviously makes movie watchers think she's the same age as Harry, both being in their 7th year during the events of the Deathly Hallows, had Harry gone of course. However, in the book, Cho had graduated at the end of the Half-Blood Prince. She did come back for the battle, but she was not a student. She came back as a fully educated adult and came through the Hog's Head. 7. Percy Weasley disowned his family. This one cuts deep for book readers, and once I go over this, it will cut deep for movie watchers as well. Welcome to the club. When the Ministry went after Harry and the Order of the Phoenix, all of the Weasleys supported Harry and helped with the Order of the Phoenix. All of course, except Percy. Percy actually sided with the Ministry, backing Fudge and even Umbridge. He also told his father that he held him back with his career because of his embarrassing obsession with Muggles. He also said that Mr. Weasley wanting to work with Muggles was the reason the family was poor. Yeah, it got pretty heated. To add to that, when Mrs. Weasley went to Percy, he slammed the door in his mother's face. Everyone thought Percy would come back to the family once it was proven that the Ministry was wrong about Harry and wrong about Voldemort being back. But Percy still stuck to his guns, refusing to interact with his family. It wasn't until the final battle that he rejoined them and made amends for all of his mistakes. 8. Fenrir Greyback was the werewolf that bit Remus Lupin. Greyback was heavily utilized in the Half-Blood Prince film, being a part of 3 major scenes, and was also in both Deathly Hallows movies. However, the movies never told us that he was the one who bit Remus Lupin when he was a child, meaning Greyback was the reason that Lupin was a werewolf. 9. Hermione fought for house elf rights. The movies never even hinted to the fact that Hermione was obsessed with freeing house elves and changing the stigma around them. She formed an organization in the 4th book called SPEW, or the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare. Hermione was so passionate about this that when she found out house elves made the food at Hogwarts, she went on a hunger strike. Also, this obsession with house elf rights was the basis of Ron and Hermione's first kiss in the novel. What made Hermione leap at Ron and kiss him was Ron saying that they had to get the house elves out before the battle started. This is a pretty crucial part of Hermione's character that you would never know if you only saw the movies. 10. Harry's wand was used to cast the Dark Mark at the Quidditch World Cup. As wild as that probably sounds to people who have only seen the films, it's true. Barty Crouch Jr. actually sat behind the trio during the game while under an invisibility cloak, and while there, he stole Harry's wand. Later that night, he cast the Dark Mark in the sky, but unlike in the movie where he did it after the Death Eaters attack, Barty Jr. did it during the attack, doing it to scare the Death Eaters away, who he resented for not seeking out their fallen master. 11. Voldemort killed his father. In the opening chapter of the 4th novel, we learn that Tom Riddle Sr., along with his mother and father, aka Voldemort's grandparents, were found dead by Muggles in their home. The Muggle police were stumped because nothing was wrong with their bodies other than the fact that they were dead, which is of course because the killing curse was used on them. Then in the Half-Blood Prince novel, we get more detail on this as we find out that Voldemort himself was the one who carried this out, killing his father and grandparents. Though we inferred as much from the first chapter of the 4th book. 12. Petunia Dursley asked Albus Dumbledore if she could go to Hogwarts. Another thing that probably sounds absolutely crazy to non-book readers. The movies gave nothing but evidence that Petunia hated magic in the wizarding world.
Freak! Up here!
But the book actually showed little snippets here and there that showed that she was just envious of those who had magic, and she wished that she had it too. This was fully confirmed in the final book when we went through the Prince's Tale. One of Snape's memories was him and Lily finding a letter from Dumbledore replying to Petunia saying that he was sorry, but she couldn't come to Hogwarts. 13. Gellert Grindelwald had a redemption. With the prequel Fantastic Beasts films, movie watchers are very aware of Gellert Grindelwald as he was the main villain in that series. Movie watchers also saw an older Grindelwald in Deathly Hallows Part 1, and in that scene, he tells Voldemort that the Elder Wand was buried with Dumbledore.
The Elder Wand
lies with him, of course. Dumbledore.
Allowing Voldemort to get the most powerful wand in the world. However, this scene is very different in the book. Grindelwald does not help Voldemort. In fact, he refuses to tell the Dark Lord anything, leading to Voldemort killing him. Dumbledore later reflects on this in the chapter King's Cross, saying that Grindelwald felt remorse for all the damage he had caused, and this was his way of making amends and his way of protecting Albus in his grave. 14. Rita Skeeter is an animagus. The films featured Rita Skeeter in the 4th movie, but they left a ton out. We find out in the book that she's an unregistered animagus who can turn into a beetle. Unregistered meaning she didn't file this ability with the Ministry of Magic, which is the law if you become an animagus. Her turning into a beetle was how she was getting her information for all of the articles she wrote that gossiped about Harry, Hermione, Krum, and even Hagrid, who she outed as a half-giant. She would just turn into a beetle to sneak around the grounds and listen to get stories. At the end of the book, Hermione actually captures Rita in a jar, keeps her imprisoned in there, and blackmails her, which is another thing that might come as a shock to those who have only seen the movies. This is very unlike the perfect movie version of Hermione. This is something that you would never think she would do if you only saw the films. But that's a topic for a whole other video. 15. Ron and Hermione were prefects. We were introduced to the idea of prefects as well as head boy and head girl from Percy Weasley.
Prefects will lead our house back to the dormitories.
Excuse me, I'm head boy.
What the films didn't mention though was that going into their 5th year, both Ron and Hermione were chosen as the Gryffindor prefects for that year, meaning they took on a disciplinarian role, their job being to make sure no one broke the rules. Mrs. Weasley was so excited that Ron was chosen that she bought him a new broomstick for that year. 16. Nearly Headless Nick was denied by the Headless Hunt. We met Nearly Headless Nick in the first movie and saw him again in the second film. What the second movie left out though was Nick's death day party. He invited a whole room full of ghosts, and at this party, we find out that the Headless Hunt, which is obviously famous outside of the series and folklore, had denied Nick to join because his head was not fully cut off like all of theirs, which greatly upset Nick. 17. Dobby worked at Hogwarts. Dobby only made an appearance in the 2nd and 7th films, but he was present in the 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th book. For most of this, he was made one of the house elves that cooked and cleaned for the school, and he was one of the first, if not the first house elf ever to actually get paid. After being freed from the Malfoys, Dumbledore agreed to pay him for his service in the kitchens, which Dobby was thrilled about. Him working for Hogwarts made him see Harry many times over the course of books 4 to 6, and many of those moments were given to Neville in the films, as Dobby was the one who found the Room of Requirement for the DA, and he was the one who gave Harry Gillyweed for the second task of the Triwizard Tournament. 18. Harry funded Fred and George's joke shop. We saw the twins' joke shop, Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, in a truly incredible scene during the Half-Blood Prince film. What people who haven't read the books might not know though, is that the twins were able to purchase this location in Diagon Alley because Harry gave them the money he got for winning the Triwizard Tournament. Harry made them promise never to tell their mother, who greatly disapproved of them going down this career path, but it proved to be highly successful. Harry refused to be paid back though, but the twins ensured that Harry got anything he wanted from the shop for free. 19. There was a taboo on Voldemort's name in the Deathly Hallows. One thing the movies left out was that when Voldemort took over the Ministry, the Death Eaters and the Snatchers were able to put a taboo in place, which meant that anybody who said Voldemort's name out loud would lead them right to the person that said it, using the same sort of method they used to catch underage wizards using magic outside of school. The reason they chose the word Voldemort was because the only people who would say his actual name instead of you-know-who or the Dark Lord were people who were defying him. This taboo was actually what led Snatchers to the trio in the book. 20. Kreacher the House Elf had a redemption. The movies only showed the grumpy, mudblood hating side of Kreacher, but they skipped over the fact that he actually had a redemption. He told the trio the story of R.A.B. or Regulus Arcturus Black, who was the first to figure out that Voldemort had a Horcrux. Kreacher had helped his master get the locket, and he watched Regulus die right in front of him. After the trio heard this, they started to be much kinder to Kreacher, and it made all the difference, as he treated them super well, even making them fabulous meals. On top of that, he led the house elves from the Hogwarts kitchens into battle, fighting for his master Regulus. 21. Gilderoy Lockhart spent many years in the hospital after losing his memory. Gilderoy Lockhart played a massive role in the second movie, which ended with him being blasted by his own memory charm, but he was never seen again in the films. However, the books followed up on this. We next see him in the permanent spell damage ward at St. Mungo's Hospital, where he still had his memory wiped 3 years later. He got a bit of it back, remembering how to sign autographs, which might be the most Lockhart thing ever. But other than that, he was pretty much the same as when we saw him at the end of the second installment, and it didn't look like he was getting any better. 22. The Sorting Hat sings a song every year. What non-book readers wouldn't know is that every year, the Sorting Hat sings a song, normally about the houses or the history of Hogwarts, but other times, he would sing about the current state of the world as he did in the Half-Blood Prince. He of course heard everything going on because he lives in the headmaster's office all year, so he was up to date on the state of everything, and he was not hesitant to share his opinions. 23. Neville Longbottom was almost the chosen one instead of Harry. We all know, movie watchers included, that the prophecy was about Harry and Voldemort. However, what people who have only seen the movies don't know is that the prophecy could have been about Neville too. Each phrase foretold could be about Neville, as he was born at the end of July and his parents had defied Voldemort 3 times just like Harry's parents. The only reason it wasn't about Neville though is because Voldemort chose to go after Harry on October 31st, 1981, thus setting the prophecy in stone. Had Voldemort gone after Neville that fateful night though, the prophecy would have been about him instead of Harry. 24. Ron played Quidditch in his 5th year. Ron of course played Quidditch in The Half-Blood Prince, but what people who have only seen the movie don't know is that he played the year before that. As mentioned earlier in the video, Ron got a new broomstick before his 5th year for becoming a prefect, and he used that to try out for Keeper. He made the team, but he got really in his head, especially when Draco Malfoy and the Slytherins started chanting a song called "Weasley is our king," which basically said that Ron always let the quaffle in, letting the other team get an easy victory. However, at the end of the year, Ron played amazingly, actually securing a championship for Gryffindor, and the Gryffindors turned the "Weasley is our king" song into a chant to celebrate Ron rather than to tear him down. 25. Voldemort put a curse on the Defense Against the Dark Arts job. If movie watchers ever wondered why there was a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher every single year, the reason is because of Voldemort. Voldemort was actually promised by the former headmaster, Professor Dippet, that he could teach at Hogwarts when he got older. However, when he came back a decade later, Dumbledore was the headmaster, and he refused to give the job to Voldemort. Voldemort was so mad that before leaving the castle, he put a curse on the Defense Against the Dark Arts position, thus making every teacher who took on that role only last 1 year. 26. Cho Chang did not betray Dumbledore's army. In the film, we saw Cho betray the DA, which we later found out was because Umbridge used truth serum on her. However, in the book, Cho had nothing to do with Umbridge busting the group. It was actually Cho's friend Marietta Edgecombe who ratted them out, mainly because she was scared of ruining her mother's ministry career if they were caught. What she didn't know was that without telling anyone, Hermione put a curse on the document they signed, which ruthlessly made whoever broke the pact get the word sneak permanently written across their face, spelled out in pimples. Hermione made this girl forever have that on her face. It never went away. Which again does not sound like the perfect movie version of Hermione. The Hermione in the books is a very different character than the one in the film. But again, that's a topic for another video. 26. We met Narcissa Malfoy in the 4th installment, not the 6th. In the films, we're introduced to Narcissa Malfoy in the 6th movie, The Half-Blood Prince. But in the books, we actually meet her for the first time in the 4th book at the Quidditch World Cup. She and her family sat in the Minister's Box, which also included Harry, Hermione, and the Weasleys, who had gotten a special invite to also sit in the Minister's Box, the best seat in the house. Narcissa was her normal snobbish self, which was of course both Harry and the audience's first impression of her, whereas in the movies, our first impression of her was very different, as we see her protecting her son. 28. Harry and Ginny break up. At the end of the Half-Blood Prince book, Harry actually breaks up with Ginny at Dumbledore's funeral, saying that being with her would put her in too much danger. This means that the two were not together while Harry was at the Weasleys before and during the wedding, nor when he was on the run. It was only after the Battle of Hogwarts that they got back together. To be fair though, it was pretty hard to tell that they were actually a couple in the 6th movie. But either way, non-book readers never knew that they broke up. 29. Sybil Trelawney is an alcoholic. Sybil was a very weird character both in the book and in the film. A big part of this, as we find out in book 6, is that she was a heavy drinker. Harry found her getting rid of a whole handful of empty alcohol bottles, throwing them in the room of requirement. In that moment, Harry discovered why she always locked herself up in her tower and why she rarely joined others in the rest of the castle. She was upstairs drinking by herself. As an alcoholic myself, that definitely sounds like alcoholic behavior. And finally, 30. Hagrid's motorbike is actually Sirius's motorbike. In the first chapter of the first book, when Hagrid arrives, he tells Dumbledore and McGonagall that he got this motorbike from Sirius Black, which at the time didn't mean anything until we got to the Prisoner of Azkaban a few years later. Then Hagrid drunkenly elaborates on this story in the 3rd book. The movie left this out too though, so non-book readers never knew that the bike originally belonged to Sirius, which makes it funny that it's called Hagrid's motorbike. And there are 30 things that people who have not read the books wouldn't know. Comment below any more you can think of. There are so many more. I originally had a list of 50 plus things, but I narrowed it down to 30 for the video. Maybe I'll do a part 2 sometime. But write your own list in the comments below and give me your list of the things that I didn't mention. That's all I have for you guys today though, so I will see you in the next video.